A third consecutive series victory over an above 500 team caps off a potential season-saving run for the Mariners heading into the All-Star break. Our thoughts on the big weekend and more coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Monday, July 10th, 2023. This is Trident Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper Picks, and you could win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. Good vibes all around for the Mariners yesterday. They added 4 new prospects to their farm system and secured a series victory over the Astros to head into the All-Star break above 500. There was so much good stuff. We're actually doing 2 episodes today. On this episode, we'll be breaking down the series in Houston, and on the other, we'll tell you our thoughts on what the Mariners did on day 1 of the 2023 MLB draft. But Colby, we got to start with American League Player of the Week, which just got announced, 5 or 10 minutes before we hit record on this thing. Logan Gilbert, who was sensational once again, following his complete game shutout in San Francisco. He goes 7 strong in yesterday's 3-1 win over the Houston Astros. Just 3 hits allowed, 1 earned run on a solo home run by Martin Maldonado, 6 strikeouts, 94 pitches. Just 3 hard hit balls, and only one of those actually resulted in a hit. That was Maldonado's home run. And the slider was the big pitch of the day for Gilbert. The Astros had really struggled against right-handed sliders, and he really went after him with that pitch. So, Colby, your assessment of Gilbert, who's been red hot his last 2 starts.
I mean, clearly he regressed from the San Francisco start, so you got to start with the negative. But it was pretty interesting. Something we found out in game 1 and remained true throughout the entire series is that the Astros are right-handed heavy lineup at the moment, and they are an aggressive lineup at the moment. So we learned that in the very first game. And that trend continued. And we also saw all the pitchers pretty much run with the same strategy. Everything was either breaking in or away. There wasn't a lot of vertical drops in this series from the Mariners starters. And Gilbert just, dominated. 68% slider and fastball. He did get 9 whiffs on 22 swings on the slider. Also got 4 called strikes. So that's a really good ratio. But kind of the sneaky pitch he kind of held in reserve until the last 2 innings was the knuckle curve. We actually saw probably the best knuckle curve we've seen from Gilbert in quite a while. He threw 18 of them, got 11 swings on that, 6 whiffs. He also threw 5 first strikes, called strikes. So that's a massive number, which 61% called strike plus whiff on a pitch that's traditionally been Gilbert's, 3rd or 4th best pitch at most. It was really cool to see him kind of break that out in the last 2 innings, and it was slider, fastball heavy for 5, and then the last 2 he's like, well, now here's the knuckle curve at you, and you're not going to know what to do with it. Didn't really throw the splitter all that much, didn't need to, but yeah, it was the slider was the pitch of the day. Backed it up with a pretty good fastball. Velocity up a little bit. Sat 96 most of the game. He was right at the top line. The slider played off perfectly, and because he could throw it for a strike, the Astros had to respect that pitch, which allowed the fastball to play up even more, which allowed the slider to play up even more. And then again, just to be mean, Gilbert started throwing in some nasty knuckle curves at the end, and Houston just didn't have a chance against Gilbert yesterday. He was he was on, and this is what we talk about when Gilbert struggles. Yeah, it sucks. It's hard to watch, but at the end of the day, this is the ceiling of Logan Gilbert. And right now, in his last 2 starts, he's looked like a legitimate ace. So you got to take the good with the bad, because at the end of the day, Logan Gilbert's number 3, and he showed, exactly what his ceiling was over his last 2 starts. And yesterday was a lot of fun.
Obviously, last season in April, he won AL Pitcher of the Month. He was fantastic that month. But considering how well his secondaries are working for him right now, is this the best we've ever seen Logan Gilbert?
Yeah, I think so. We talked about this last year. If Logan could just throw more strikes with the off-speed stuff, can he get value out of his off-speed stuff in the zone? And we saw what happened when he could. We saw dominant starts against really good teams like the Yankees, where, if he could get that slider right on the outside corner, he could expand with it and dominate that really good lineup. We've seen him do this before, but right now he's getting called strikes with the slider. Yesterday he got called strikes with the curveball too, and obviously we know Logan is going to throw strikes with his fastball. So yeah, I think obviously it's just 2 starts, and the few before this weren't amazing, so you don't want to overreact to anything like that. But yeah, this is kitchen sink Logan Gilbert, but he's got 98, 99 in his back pocket, with really good control and command at the moment. Yeah, this is probably the best. You're probably seeing the ceiling of Logan Gilbert over the last 2 starts, and it's as good as anybody in the American League. So if you can continue to spot the slider, if you can continue to get value out of the knuckle curve, and when he has that splitter against the lefty heavy lineups, if that pitch is going to find any kind of consistency, then yeah, Gilbert's a legit number 3 starter who might end up being a number 2 when all is said and done.
Here's Gilbert's first half stats now that the first half is over. 7-5 record over 18 starts, 108 and a third innings pitched, 8.81 Ks per 9, 158 walks per 9. That's currently his career low. 3.66 ERA, 3.47 FIP, 3.68 xFIP. He's been worth 2.3 F4. This Mariners pitching staff in general on this road trip in which they went 5-2 was sensational. 6 quality starts out of 7 possible games there. A sub 1.5 ERA. They were incredible, and they were, this offense, did produce at times. There were also a lot of missed opportunities, which we can talk about, especially in yesterday's game. But this pitching staff was really what carried this team over the course of the road trip. And a lot of good things can happen when you get some complementary offense to go along with that. Surprise, surprise! Yeah. The Mariners might actually be pretty good when it's all clicking.
Really, aside from Paul Sewald's struggle in San Francisco, the bullpen was really good as well. So just dominant pitch. They gave up 6 runs in the 4-game set against the Astros. And yes, it is a depressed Astros lineup, but you're still pitching in Houston. That ballpark is a joke. We know it is. It's great for offense, and Seattle went in there and just shut them down. Honestly, they should have swept Houston. They really should have. And it's just crazy to think about, if the Mariners had 2 extra hits in the last month with the bases loaded and nobody out, not even hits, just if they had gotten that done twice, we're talking about a team that's 4 games over 500 and has won 4 series in a row. Heading into the break. That's all we're talking about. Well, they won a series. They won 4 series in a row, including a sweep of the Astros. If they could have just gotten it done against the Nationals, if they could have just gotten it done against the Astros on Saturday. But hey, you know what? At the end of the day, they went on the road. We said if they went 4-3, that's a really good road trip. They went 5-2. So
yeah,
hard to complain even for me, but you challenge me, I'll find a way. But I'm pretty happy with where the ball club's at right now.
Well, we'll talk about this offense, and maybe you can get off some negative takes there in just a moment. But first, a reminder: this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk through things. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. Therapy can be helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It can empower you to be the best version of yourself. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you don't feel that your match is suitable for you, no worries. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonmlb today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonmlb. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. All-Star game is going on right now, or the All-Star week rather is going on right now, but you can still catch all the Mariners content on the Mariners hometown broadcast, Sirius XM via the SXM app. It's Colby. This offense, like I said earlier, was able to produce in some big moments on this road trip. Certainly some missed opportunities, but a better product overall than we've seen over the majority of the season, which is a low bar to clear, to be fair. But what did you think about this offense on this road trip?
They suck. They should trade everybody. It's over.
Right.
They
clearly they need to trade a starter for a bat.
Yes, they need to do whatever they can to sabotage themselves by trading from their really only strength to get a marginal upgrade over what they have now. Totally makes sense. Morosi's a genius. The offense, frankly, for the last 18 innings and even if you want to go further after the fourth inning on Friday, not very good. Not very good. Now, Houston can still pitch. So it's not like they were struggling against Oakland, which, God forbid that happens, which you never know with this club. It was frustrating. It certainly was, especially again, bases loaded, nobody out. You just need a fly ball, and you probably win that game. And they couldn't get it done. And then yesterday, they only 6 hits, just a lot of bad at bats against, kind of a mediocre pitcher. Like it just wasn't aesthetically pleasing to the eye, but at the end of the day, they got just enough offense to get it done. And over the road trip, they averaged just under 5 runs per game, which is going to be more than good enough. Over the course of an entire season, I think it was 4.89 runs per game, and that includes a shutout that was in there. So, overall the offense was good on the road trip. Yesterday and Saturday certainly frustrating. You could understand Saturday a little bit more because it was Framber, who was just filthy. 98 with that curveball. Oh my God.
I didn't think they were scoring.
No, I didn't either. And so, obviously Caballero just doing his thing again. You see how effective Caballero can be in a part-time role. Yep. It's awesome. He's in there. You're like, great. He's probably going to get on base at some point today. He can steal some bags. He can play some defense. He can run the bases aggressively. You just don't want him in the lineup every single day, but you kind of really don't have a better option right now. But overall the offense was okay last night. I thought, Jared Kelenic, I think had a really nice,
he did
afternoon. Mm-hmm. He only went 1 for 4, but obviously the big RBI double, but he looked good. He looked comfortable. Didn't strike out. 2 hard hit balls last night. Yeah, Cal Raleigh is a guy who really needs the All-Star break because he is struggling badly. You did have 2 hard hit balls last night. So,
and he missed a home run by like a couple of feet.
Yeah,
could have been 5-0 in that 4th inning yesterday.
Right. Raleigh needs to be better. I'm not denying that, but he was pretty good last night. It was, it's just one of those things, some bad luck. But he needs to be better. He certainly does in the second half. And I understand all the calls to make like Tom Murphy the starting catcher because Murphy's hot right now. Raleigh isn't, but Cal Raleigh needs to be better. But at the end of the day, the Mariners got, enough production yesterday. They only walked once. So that's pretty interesting, but they only struck out 7 times, which is a good number for them. So yesterday, the offense, it was frustrating. There's no doubt, but thankfully Jared Kelenic came up huge. Teoscar Hernandez came up huge once, not the other time, but at the end of the day, 3 runs is enough to win that game. And it's frustrating. Like I'm almost willing to just chalk up Saturday to be like, look, That's Framber Valdez. He's probably the best pitcher in the American League right now. What are you going to do? And then I remember the 8th inning, where for the second time in like 3 weeks, if they had just
not
left
even
the
2 weeks,
bat
actually,
on their shoulder and
Mhm.
watched every single pitch, what's his name threw, they would have won that game.
Yeah.
It's not even that they just like didn't get it done. It's that they were literally handed on a silver platter. Here's the win. Don't swing the bat. Take it. You're going to
Yeah.
win if you don't swing the bat. And what do? They chase. Like, so.
And the Martin Maldonado home run right after, most predictable thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like,
just beautiful.
Like, yeah.
I knew
Picture
it was
perfect.
happening. But just like, I was like, oh, Maldonado's up. Interesting
I
to
saw
see how we lose to
saw
him.
it play out. I saw it play out in my head during the
Just,
commercial break before the inning even started. Yeah.
It was brutal. Once they didn't score, that game was over. Like, I was like, there's no way. They're gonna lose. They rolled over.
Yeah,
like it's done.
Yeah. I've seen far too many games that have gone like that in my lifetime. So I was more than well prepared for that. Nevertheless, though, this offense has been a lot better as of late. And again, with this pitching staff, with how good it is, you don't need to be great as an offense. You just need to be good enough. And the Mariners, for the most part, have been good enough, Saturday notwithstanding. Right. So just keep doing that. That's probably the formula for this team, at least until they can get to the trade deadline and add to this offense, hopefully. But for now, in the interim, look, on this road trip, Colton Wong hasn't been good. Like, don't get me wrong, but he's at least not been nothing. Like, he's given you some contributions like he did in the blowout on Friday. Like, as long as you can get that over the next 2.5 weeks until the trade market really starts to open up, then, and it might not even take 2.5 weeks for you to start, really getting serious about trades. But as long as you can get that, I think you can survive. So
you're just looking for guys to buy time.
Yeah.
And that's what Mike Ford has done the last few weeks, really on the road trip. He's helped you buy time.
Mm-hmm.
And Wong, again, like you said, while he hasn't been good, he's been better.
Yeah.
Which is helpful. The defense is actually, the last week or so, he's looked like Colton Wong defensively.
Dude, like Friday, we didn't talk at all about the defense on Friday. Friday, the defense was
exceptional. Yeah.
Like Colton Wong's defense, Eugenio Suarez's defense,
JP.
Julio was the Julio robbery in the blowout as well.
Yeah. It was in the 9th. Yeah. Saucedo was pitching. Yeah, that game was like JP made a couple incredible plays too. Like JP was on fire in the field this series. But yeah, that's kind of the foundation of the Seattle Mariners, right? Like we make the routine plays, we make enough of the spectacular plays. We're going to miss bats, we're going to get weak fly balls, and we're just not going to let you score. That is how the Mariners are built, not only to win this year. This is how the organization is built to win, period. Is they are a run prevention team. And while pitching is always the sexiest part of run prevention because it's pitching ninja, it's 98, it's sweeping sliders, it's breaking balls, defense also prevents runs. I know, right? Revolutionary thought, but a run saved is the same thing as an RBI. It's just harder to quantify what saves a run sometimes. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. But a run saved is as good as a run scored. So, yeah, the defense was exceptional. Really, the entire road trip. There was one game, I think, was it one of the San Francisco wins. They had a couple kicks, which was the Julio dropping the ball and Teoscar's loopy route. Like, okay,
we don't need to talk about that. Yeah,
sure, that was the 2-0 loss. We pretend that game doesn't exist, but the defense was exceptional, and like Gino, honestly, on Friday, Gino, JP, and Colton Wong all made amazing plays this weekend, and it's great. And Caballero contributed as well. Like Mariners infield defense, not a problem. It's really not, especially if Wong is going to hold up his end. And aside from the disaster in San Francisco, Mariners outfield defense totally fine. Julio is a Gold Glove contender. Teoscar is at least average. Kelenic is at least average. And I can't believe I'm saying that about Teoscar, but he is. I don't know what to tell you. Clearly he is.
And then there's Dylan Moore.
Can't hit a cutoff man from like 80 feet away.
I'm gonna say it again.
Get
and
him
again
off the
and again.
team. Anyways,
Yeah,
go ahead.
he needs to be sent down or go IL'd. He's clearly in no condition to play at the major league level right now.
He's not
So
a major league quality. He is. Think about this. Think about how bad Colton Wong has been all year. He is significantly better than Dylan Moore right now.
I have 100 times
Significantly.
more confidence in his ability to produce for the Mariners right now than Dylan Moore. Yeah. And that's saying something. Look, I know, the obvious corresponding move there is Sam Haggerty.
That's the correct move.
I'd rather see one of the outfielders. Just give me one of the outfielders. I don't really care.
Oh, I see. Ty thinks because they haven't played in the big leagues, that means they're better than Sam Haggerty. Yeah.
And I just
Haggerty replaces Dylan Moore perfectly, except for the part where Haggerty's actually swinging the bat right now.
So Haggerty's numbers in AAA matter.
Yeah, when you compare them to what he did in the major leagues, yes, they do carry some weight.
AAA numbers matter for Sam Haggerty, but they don't for Jake Shiner.
No, because Jake Shiner's a first base only with a slow bat.
Zach DeLoach, Taylor Trammell, Cade Marlowe as of late.
Taylor Trammell's long, illustrious major league background should give him the advantage.
Sam Haggerty's long, illustrious background.
It's longer and more illustrious than Taylor Trammell.
Barely.
No, it's not. Taylor Trammell's never been an average hitter at the major league level.
He's been for like a couple weeks.
Ooh, a couple weeks. Wow, that's awesome.
Like Haggerty's been like good for like a month. Like
Haggerty's been good
legitimately
for like 6 weeks.
Legitimately good for like a month to all right, 6 weeks. Sure.
So I'm confused then, Ty. Is 6 weeks longer than 4 weeks?
Sure.
Oh,
still, that's not as good of an argument as you think it is.
By the way, well, how about this argument? Who's going to steal a bag for you when you need it? Who's more likely to?
Cade Marlowe.
Really? You think Cade Marlowe's a better base runner than Sam Haggerty? By the way, Haggerty does the one thing that Marlowe, we don't know if he can or cannot do. He hits lefties. So, yeah. At the end of the day, here's my bold thought. Go get a utility guy who's better than both of them.
Crazy. But in the meantime,
Paul DeYoung.
But in the meantime,
Sam Haggerty,
Jake Shiner, Cade Marlowe,
Sam Haggerty, yep,
Taylor Trammell, Zach DeLoach.
Sam Haggerty.
Thank you. All right, I want to talk more about just where the Mariners stand right now, heading into the All-Star break, and what things look like coming out of the All-Star break in just a moment. But first, a reminder: this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Sleeper. Are you using the Sleeper app for daily fantasy baseball? I am. Want to times your money by 100? Sleeper is now offering up to a 100 times payout for up to 8 pick contests. Choose as many as 8 players that you like and pick more or less on your favorite baseball stats like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right and you can win big. Making your picks is easy and takes only 30 seconds or less. And if you win, you can withdraw your payouts safe and quickly. Use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can get your Mariners fix on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. So, on this show, I don't know, a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago, we were talking about where the Mariners need to get before the trade deadline. And I said, like, hey, going into the All-Star break, could you get to like 5 back of the Rangers or of, first place in the AOS? And, it wasn't pretty, but they nearly got there. They're 6 back. The Rangers are playing some really bad ball right now. The Astros, as we've seen, are weak. Obviously, they're not fully healthy, and they're going to get healthier coming out of the All-Star break or shortly thereafter. Obviously context is very important for those things, and we'll dive into that a little bit more, but the Mariners are playing their best ball that we've seen all season. They're above 500 heading into the All-Star break, which I think is just huge for confidence purposes, especially after, a loss like Saturday's, to come back on Sunday and get a convincing win again. Again, we talked about this after, the first win in Houston, which followed up that loss in San Francisco, that just let it be a bump in the road. Don't let it snowball into anything bigger. And the Mariners have been successful in doing that over the last, week or so. So when they come out of this All-Star break, they're going to have, I believe, the fourth easiest remaining schedule in Major League Baseball. Maybe it's the second. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the schedule is going to lighten up. There's definitely going to be some really big and tough series, particularly in September. But as far as, between now and the trade deadline, which is really the biggest stretch of the season, because we've talked about it, you need to incentivize Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander to get aggressive at the deadline if you really want to get serious about this thing. The only way that you can do that is by winning. So you open up with the Tigers at home for 3. You get the Twins for 4, and then the Blue Jays for 3 before you head out on the road. Those are all winnable series. Colby, what do you think about where the Mariners are right now, and have they set themselves up well enough to make a run at the division here over the final 2.5 months of the season?
Sure, because it's not just about where the Mariners are trending; it's where the other teams are. The Angels have lost 9 of their last 10. Now they've lost Mike Trout for an extended period of time. They've lost Rendon again. The pitching was never that good. Tyler Anderson, surprise, turned back into a pumpkin. Who would have ever guessed that? By the way, that only cost the Angels their 2nd round pick. The Angels are obviously down bad right now. Texas is really, I don't want to say they're struggling. They're just falling back down to earth where we thought they would be. Over the last 30 games, they're like 12-18. Yeah, that's about the talent of their roster. Especially when you're not getting, ungodly numbers with runners in scoring position and all of that stuff. So, and then obviously Houston is not the juggernaut they used to be. Yes, they'll be better when they have Yordan. There's no doubt about that. But even with, Yordan, they're still not the team they were for the last half decade. They have holes. They have depth issues, and they're a team that you can run down. So yeah, the Mariners are in good position. One other thing to note here about this, the last 10 games, 7 are against Texas, 3 are against Houston. So yeah. You get to the end of the year, you can make a lot happen if you're just 1 or 2 game or 3 games back. They can run them down. They have to go get help to do it. I don't think they can do it with what they have on hand. But I think there's 18 games until the trade deadline. For me, the next 10 games dictate a lot because you can't just wait and see how you do in those 18 games and then try to make trade at the last minute, right? You have to kind of have an idea going in, and you have to give yourself a couple days at least to try and figure out, what's it going to cost? Is it worth it? Blah, blah, blah. So to me, the first 10 games out of the break, which I believe are Detroit, 4 against Minnesota and 3 against Toronto. Those 10 games, I think you got to go 6-4. It'd be great if you could go 7-3, but I think you got to go at least 6-4. And not that it really matters. It'd be really nice if, 2 of those 6 wins came against the Blue Jays next weekend, who you're chasing for that wild card spot. So, I think they're in good shape, but I do think the next 10 games will dictate. I think they're going to buy for 2024 regardless. I think that's been their plan. That's going to be their plan. But like, how aggressive are they on rentals and that type of thing? If they go 8-2 over the next 10, they're probably going to be pretty aggressive on that. Because at that point, you're 7 games over. You're probably caught, you probably gained a couple games on Texas, a couple games on a wild card contender, blah, blah, blah. If they go 4-6 or 3-7, you're probably out. You're probably out on rentals, and honestly, you're probably out of the playoff hunt. Like, the last 9 games has been great. The Mariners have played really well. They easily could have won all 9, and they won 7 of 9. They're surging right now. That's all great. If you come out of the break and you go 3-7, it's over. Like, there's not incentive at that point to believe in this team to go out and invest heavily in them. So again, I still think they look for guys who could help them in 2024, but these ideas that you have of, trading for Cody Bellinger or, this rental here or this rental here, they all kind of go out the window because those guys don't make sense. So the next 10 games, I think, are absolutely critical to determine how aggressive the Mariners are going to be, at least in the rental market. So you know, I depending on what the other teams do, which is always kind of an X factor we can't control. If they go 5-5 or worse, it's hard for me to imagine they're going to be heavily invested in the rental market, and I think they need to be.
Right. If you want the Mariners to make moves that say, hey, we're going for it, we want to try and still win a championship this year, you want them to go like 7-3 over their next 10 games. Because there is a major difference between trading with the idea of, you know, we're trying to make it, you know, via the wild card, and, you know, go and trading with the idea of like we can actually legitimately win the division. Right. So that's why I bring up the division, not because I'm like, oh, the division is the only way you can get into the playoffs. It's more so because right now that's going to determine a lot, at least theoretically speaking. Right. I'm not Jerry DiPoto. I'm not Justin Hollander. I'm not there. So I don't know exactly what their threshold is for, you know, how aggressive they want to get. But again, like common sense would say that if you think you can go win the division, you're going to get more aggressive out on the market.
Oh, absolutely. It's guaranteed home playoff games. Like that's huge. So,
which from an owner standpoint, more revenue for you.
Right.
Right.
Yes. Because if there's one thing we know about,
we're
not doing that.
We're not doing that. But no. You know,
also there's a really good chance that if you win your division, you're going to have the second best record, which means you don't have to play in the wild card round.
Right.
So, you know, not even the second best. You just have the second best record of the division winners, which means you avoid playing wild card weekend, which means you get a little bit of rest. And again, guaranteed home playoff games. So, I think like if the deadline was like today, like hypothetically, if we were in the exact same situation today, 6 games back, you know, you're surging, the other teams are falling, and the deadline happened to be today. I think you're looking at this as like, we need to build a team that can win the division and then just fall into the wild card if we fall short.
Yeah.
That can change, you know, pretty drastically over the next 10 games. So again, I can't stress this enough. And I don't want to look at the schedule. Like somebody asked me last night in our AMA, like, oh, the schedule lightens up a little bit after the break, and then there's a really long, good stretch in August. When has quality of opponent ever mattered?
This team literally lost a series to the Nationals, then won 3 consecutive series against above 500
against playoff teams.
Yeah.
They won 7 of 10 against playoff teams. So yeah, who knows? I'm not looking at the schedule. You just have to play better. But yeah, I do think the next 10 games are absolutely critical to kind of determine just how aggressive Jerry DiPoto and Justin Hollander are going to be. So yeah, if you're, you know, a big Cody Bellinger guy, or you want them to go out and you know, pick your favorite rental and you know, be aggressive and go get that guy, the next 10 games will more than likely determine whether or not, because I don't know if there's going to be like a major trade made in the next 10 days.
Right.
It's not impossible now that the draft, once the draft is over. Certainly not impossible, but I feel like most of the major action is going to happen like July 20th to August 1st. So again, the next 10 games are, I sound like a broken record, but I can't stress it enough. The next 10 games are absolutely critical.
All right. So the home run derby is about 5 hours from the time we're recording this. Let us know in the comments below, how many home runs is Julio hitting in front of the home crowd tonight? And is he getting past Pete Alonso? Because I think if he gets past Pete, I think he's going to win. We'll see. We'll see about Adley, because he's the only lefty hitting. He says that he's hitting lefty, so which is a good decision on his. Yeah, good decision on his part. Luis Roberts obviously hit a ton of home runs this year, but that never really translates to the Derby.
You never know with the Derby,
and we've never seen Robert do it. Mookie, I see a lot of people picking Mookie, but I don't think Mookie is going to be that good at it. I love Mookie, but
I'm Hall of Famer, but like,
I
don't know. I guess I've never seen Mookie take BP, so I don't know. Like, to be fair, I've never seen Julio take BP live. So I mean, I don't know, but we know that Julio's good at the Derby. We know that Alonso's good at the Derby. So
that's the championship matchup in the first round.
I mean, it could be. I don't know, man. Like, knocking out Alonso twice in 2 years, that's a tall task. But, and you know, I do wonder how Julio is going to perform with the pressure of hitting in front of his home crowd. We know how we feel about Julio and pressure, so We'll see. But, ultimately, I do think Julio is kind of like designed because Julio hits just like screaming home runs, like line drive screamers. So we'll see. It's his home ballpark. I really don't think that's much of an advantage. Like, it's like, oh, I know the jet stream goes this way. Everybody does. So,
yeah. It's
we'll
a
see how
little
he
bit of
does.
a windy day in Seattle right now.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like
continue
supposed to be about
into the night.
70.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be about 70 and mostly clear. So I assume the roof will be open. So
it's cloudy
obviously-
right now. Like as they were announcing the starting pitchers and the lineups, there were a lot of clouds in those pictures that I saw, but I think it's supposed to clear up around 6 or so. So yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So again, we're doing a second show right after this. So we're gonna drop this and then we're gonna record that and drop that show around 4:00 Pacific time. We're going to be breaking down all the Mariners draft picks from day one of the 2023 MLB draft. So be sure to stay tuned for that. But for now, that's going to do it for our shows. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. That's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. We're also now on Threads. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day. We'll see you later tonight. Peace.